Friday. So negotiations this year, I was a team member of 10. I think there were 5 for the BCEA and 5 on the Blaine County School District side. So it took a total of 4 days this year. And again, the team was incredible to work with. We came to an agreement on late Friday afternoon. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments on this. Just so you know, the BCEA did ratify, their membership ratified, was it last night? Last night.
Yeah.
So the teachers union did ratify that. Paul, do you?
Well, when it comes
time, okay.
Yeah, I do have one question. I just in reading the percentage changes in the raises and so on, Mike, if you have any idea what what that means in dollars to the district?
We have it all. So I think that's what we're going to present to you right now.
Oh, okay.
So,
Okay.
So I think, if you're okay, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is just, and I sent you an email this morning, all of you. I don't know if you've had time to look at it. I'm just going to recap it quickly, kind of let you know what took 4 days and not 2 days. And then Mike's got the numbers that support the different things that we negotiated. So first of all, as Steve said, do I need one of these? Do I need a microphone? Yeah. All right, if we just don't want to use
Right here.
I'll just use this one. So first of all, we usually, in the last few years, we've scheduled negotiations for 2 days. The nice thing about interest-based bargaining, which is a team concept of bargaining, it's as opposed to collective bargaining where you're across the table and kind of playing dirty tricks. We don't do that. We put everything out on the table, we work together. And the two teams are maturing together. And so they're the association's team members. They have 3 that have now been on it for 3 or more years. Once that happens, something very positive happens inside the room, and we understand the process. The reason we did 4 days and not 2 days is because 2 years ago, when the Luna laws came in, it struck much of what master contracts held on to for many years, and only allowed master contracts to contain salary and anything related to benefits. So we had to do a negotiation with our teachers to make a decision what goes. We had just taken what was in the master contract and we moved it over to the policy manual. And that was a deal we made with our association because that contract had served us pretty well over time. So what we ended up doing was spending 2 days of the 4 days negotiating what should come back into the master agreement. Now, we still have to be careful because the law precludes the evergreen clause. And the evergreen clause says that contracts exist in perpetuity unless they're struck down. So in Idaho, all master contracts were evergreen, and so you didn't have to negotiate the whole contract every year. It worked well for everyone. The law now says you must negotiate salary and benefits every year, and you can negotiate the language in the contract every 2 years. So no matter what happens, we'll be revisiting this process at least every 2 years. So this is what ended up happening with the policy. There were certain policies that we really felt organically fit the teachers and the master contract, and there were some policies that should stay in policy because they're more board related. So the policies that went back into the master contract were the grievance policy. That policy had not changed. It was in the master contract, and to be honest with you, we really don't care where it sits. And it matters to the teachers that it's in the contract, but it's just a process for going through a procedure if policy's been broken. So we didn't really care. They wanted it in the teacher side, and we think that sits fine there. The association rights, there was an article in the old master agreement around association rights, and it just really is the rights we give to almost every citizen. They can use the school building if they need to. They're allowed to use the fax. They can use the phones. We would even let people from outside our system do that. So we don't have any problem. That went back into the contract. Teacher evaluations went back into the contract. The reason the teacher evaluations went back into the contract is we built those evaluations 2 years ago with our teachers. And so Charlotte Danielson, the new model, when we took the 17-page rubric and we reduced it to 5 pages, was a direct result of the work that John and the teachers did. And it doesn't matter where it sits. So it went back into the contract. And we also added some language that we will come back and have a committee look at the workday. We did not have the article for workday in the contract because we think that belongs to the Board of Trustees. So what happens inside those 8 hours, the 7.5 hours the teachers work there, we think is at the discretion of the board, not at the discretion of the employee. So it stayed in the policy, and the reduction in force policy, the RIF policy, stayed in the policy. And the reason it stayed in the policy is because only the board can hire and fire. You guys do it every single month when you have entering and exiting. And if the board is responsible by law for hiring and firing, they should also be responsible for how we would have to reduce our district if we had to reduce it. So that stayed in policy. So those were the big articles. That's the way they went. We felt great about it. The two that stayed with the board and the policy, the RIF and the workday, are organically the boards anyway. So I think the union felt that way also. We got into, finally, the last 2 days into negotiating the salary and the benefits. This year, Blue Cross Insurance, we have not had big increases the last 2 years. I think just 2% in 2 years, Mike, the last 2 years?
I think it's been a little bit more than that.
Not too much, because for a while, 12% every year. But we got the 12% again this year. So Blue Cross, the state pool that we're in, which is supposed to reduce our premiums because it's a bigger pool, that pool went up 12% at each tier. So do you have those numbers, Mike? What's that cost us?
A 12% increase. We'll spend $523,000 more this year for health insurance than we did last year. That covers the 12% increase as well as additional staff members that we're bringing on as well. So that's all of it.
Okay, so that equates to 1.5%. So if we were not going to cover the insurance and make the employees do it themselves, but we were going to fund that for them, that would be 1.5% on the base. So that's what the $500,000 equates to. We also, and the district agreed to pick that up, the insurance as part of the negotiation, so they will keep the same insurance packet for next year. There was also an increase in the public education retirement system this year of 0.56%, so 0.5%, which the district agreed to pay. So what was the total on that, Mike?
Total district-wide was $142,000.
Okay. And then the dental and the vision, it was very interesting. Dental went up, vision went down, and the total difference between the two was $2,000 to the whole district. So that was included in their package. That's just really a rub to us. And then the final thing, when we were negotiating, was the salaries. And we finally came to an agreement on 1.25% on the base. And unlike last year, where there was 1% off the base, nothing off the base this year. And that was actually the number that they came to us with, which we thought was workable. They actually came with a higher number, and then we negotiated back and forth, and then we had to talk about the benefits, because the benefits are a direct cost of the general fund, so they have to be included as salary benefits. And negotiated through it, the way that we do it is all 10 people have to either be good with it or okay with it. Out of those 10 people, nobody can be down with it. So that's the way that process worked. It worked for 4 days, and I think when we were finished, everybody was doing this. So, okay, Mike, so anything Mike to add?
Just the total package for the 1.25% salary increase as well as the health and PERS is about $1,140,000.
Okay, so I'm going to ask our policy guy, anything you want to add, John?
No, there were just a couple other things that we kept in policy, some things that we didn't move back to the contract, like class size, workday. Lonnie already mentioned workday, but those were some things that didn't go back into the contract, the RIF policy, things like that we thought that sit well in policy. Some of the things that went back into the contract are legally regulated anyway. You have to provide employees with grievance procedures. You have to provide them with the evaluation, which is set by the State Department of Ed. So all those things are really regulated anyway. They sit inside the contract, but if there's a change at the State Department, then we have to adhere to that law.
One thing I would add is this, is Mike and I really expected it 2 years ago to have to be, if everything, if things had stayed exactly the same in Blaine County and we hadn't made some changes that we did, we were really projected to be out in front of the public 2 years ago asking for more money to pay our teachers. You know, we did have to make some changes, and as you know, we haven't been able to continue 4% raises every year like we did in the past. On the other hand, neither has the rest of the state of Idaho. When you look at what we ended up drawing the general fund down, the good news for us is we're solvent for a number of years out. And it's fantastic that we can, because there are districts I've talked to them, I just had a superintendent's meeting a week ago in Twin. There are districts that can give their teachers nothing. There are still districts in Idaho furloughing teachers. And of course, you guys know there are districts like Nampa that have zero in their coffers. And for us to be able to say we can help our teachers with a cost of living increase, that's what we want to record. Actually, just so you all know, the current rate of inflation is 1.75%. That's the current rate of inflation, and our teachers just got 1.25%. So we feel good, but it doesn't really even keep up with inflation. But on the other hand, being able to give our teachers something feels pretty good right now compared to some districts that cannot. So that's what the association ratified last night. We were very pleased because they had 125 voters there, and 122 of them voted yes. One didn't vote, and 2 voted no. So that's pretty good.
John?
I was just going to add that one other thing that went into the, I've got mine on. So one other thing that went into the contract that we dealt with by committee with the association, Paul served on that committee, was the stipend committee for the athletic stipends. And so we've always had those stipends. The stipends really didn't change a whole lot, although we are looking at a list of stipends that are off that list. But we wanted to be able to be really black and white as to why people make what they make and why they fall on a certain rubric. So those rubrics have all been redone, and actually we didn't really have any in place. So now we've got a solid rubric in place for our extracurricular activity pay. So that really wasn't impacted. There wasn't an increase or anything like that. But now you have it black and white as to why people get what they get and where they fell and what the rubric is and what the qualifiers are for that pay.
How was that received by the association?
Very well, but
Well,
they
they
were
were
right.
there.
They were
They
right
helped
there at
design
the table. So I mean, you know, all those teachers that were there,
Yeah,
very
that's
well.
right, Marie.
Yeah. I mean, we have another list of about 10 that are off that we still have to discuss, but at least we have this rubric for all our extracurricular activities.
I think the issue, Paul, is, because it didn't cost anyone any money, I think the issue now is they know, well, if I'm coaching and I don't have this many kids, I don't have this assistant. And before they really didn't, it was sort of like, oh, yeah, maybe or maybe not, or whatever. So I like the criteria, I think the teachers liked it.
Okay.
So the other thing, board, is then I'm sorry, and then finally, so we'll get the board to vote to approve the ratification or not approve it, and then in June, a discussion about our classified employees and the other administrators.
Yeah.
Around what compensation for them. So we keep those separate because we negotiate with the certified teachers, and then you guys will do something off of that negotiation. So that's all I've got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John?
So, kind of next steps, if we do not ratify this contract, the group will get back together, begin negotiations again, and start the process over.
That's correct.
If we do ratify the contract is then presented to the teachers so we can have them sign it for next year. We know who we got, who we need to hire.
If you ratify it, I got to get 230 contracts out and back before the teachers leave for something. Because even though they technically have till July 1, they're gone June 7th.
However, we do have a new law this
June
year,
10th.
just this year that just happened, that allows us to send the contracts electronically for the first time ever. Now, if you send them electronically, you have to monitor it to make sure you get them back. But we've never even been able to do that before. They have to be hand delivered, so that'll help us.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm just going to ask for a motion. Paul, do you want to?
Yes, Chairman, I would like to recuse myself from this vote. My understanding, it would probably not be illegal for me to vote, but in order to avoid any conflict of interest, it has to be recused.
Thank you. All right, so at this time, do I hear a motion to approve the ratification of the BCSD BCEA Master Agreement for the 2013-14 school year?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? No discussion. I'll take a roll call vote, please, on this. Sean?
Yay.
Catherine?
Yay.
Don?
Yay.
And yay for myself. So the ratification is the ratification of the
It's actually, Mr. Chairman,
BCSD,
it's actually approval of the ratification.
approval of the ratification of the BCSD BCA Master Agreement for the 2013-2014 school year, approved by unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
A
A lot of time and effort.
negotiation. I'll just tell you, both sides have more respect. Every time we see each other, it just goes better.
Mhm.
So I want to thank the board for helping our teachers. You know, a lot of that is symbolic, but it matters. And it certainly matters when you have 12% increase in insurance. It matters to families. So I want to thank the board, and I think we're treating our teachers pretty well.
Well, that's where that, not only negotiating the cost of living, having that health insurance code, it's big.
Well, that's, yeah,
It's something,
it is,
every,
and it's important.
yeah.
It really is. Okay, board,
Well-
thank you very much.
So do I hear a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
Meeting adjourned.
So I'll be out of Cary tonight for scholarship night tonight. So-
Oh,